Hey everyone, tonight's true stories stay as they happened. Real times, real places. Grab a blanket, keep the volume low and settle in. Before we start, tell us your city and the time on your screen. What are you listening on? iPhone, Android, TV, car or earbuds? If this keeps you company, hit subscribe when we're done. New stories roll in nightly. All right, let's begin. You ever notice how winter has a way of changing sound? Everything gets softer, muted, like the whole world's been padded in silence. When I was a kid, I loved that. I'd press my ear against the window just to listen to the snowfall, that faint hiss as flakes hit the glass. It felt peaceful, safe. But this winter, it sounded different. Like something was breathing underneath it. I live in a small town up north, one of those places that barely shows up on a map. A cluster of cabins, a grocery store that closes by 6, and a long stretch of frozen woods that nobody really goes near once December hits. It's quiet here, usually. But that's part of why I moved back. After everything that happened in the city, I needed quiet. I was staying in my late father's old cabin. It's nothing fancy. Wood stove, 1 bedroom, old generator that coughs more than it runs. But it's surrounded by trees and I liked that feeling. Being alone with the snow. At least I thought I did. The first storm came early that year. The locals said it was going to be a bad one, the kind of winter that swallows up cars and eats through roofs. But I didn't care. I had firewood stacked to the ceiling and enough canned food to last weeks. That night I remember lighting the stove and settling in with a book. The wind had started to rise and snow hit the windows in waves. It was cozy in a lonely kind of way. Then the power flickered. The lights dimmed, came back, then went out completely. Only the fire kept the room from going black. I grabbed a lantern, but the glass was cracked. The flame danced weirdly, throwing shadows across the wall, long and crooked like something moving. That's when I heard it. At first, I thought it was just the wind, a low, dragging sound like branches scraping the cabin siding. But after a few minutes, it got clearer, closer. It was coming from under the floor. You know that sound snow makes when you step in it? That slow, crunching compression? That's what it sounded like, except steady. Slow, like something crawling beneath the cabin, pushing through snow and ice. I stood there, holding the lantern, listening. The sound stopped for a second, dead quiet. And then came one soft thud. It came from right below me. I told myself it was a fox, or maybe a bear looking for warmth. But bears don't move like that, and foxes don't thud. I put on my boots, grabbed the flashlight, and stepped outside. The air hit me like knives. The snow was already up to my knees, and the wind was howling so loud it felt like it was inside my head. I shone the light around the cabin. No tracks.
Not from me, not from an animal, nothing. Just smooth, untouched snow stretching into the dark. But the weirdest part was the shape. About 10 feet from the cabin, there was a mound in the snow, like something long and heavy had moved underneath it. The flashlight beam caught a ripple, almost like a wave moving under white ice. I froze. The wind stopped for a second. Dead silence.
And then the mound shifted, just slightly, before disappearing, sinking back down as if whatever it was had gone deeper. I stumbled back inside, slammed the door, and locked it. I stood there for a long time, just listening to my heartbeat. You'd think I'd pack up and leave right then, right? But the storm had already closed the roads, and part of me is the part that always needs an explanation. And Didn't want to admit I was scared of something I couldn't name. So I stayed up all night, watching the fire burn lower and lower, listening to the wind scream through the trees. Sometime around dawn I must have drifted off in the chair. When I woke up, the storm had stopped. The whole world outside was still, white and heavy, like it had been wrapped in glass. And that's when I saw the tracks. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. They started right outside my front steps and went off toward the tree line. They weren't boot prints, not animal tracks either. They were wide, about the width of a man's shoulders, and pressed deep into the snow, like someone had been crawling, dragging themselves forward. But there was something else about them. In some places, the snow had melted slightly around the edges of the tracks, leaving behind frozen puddles that shimmered in the morning light. Almost like heat, or acid, had touched it. I followed the trail to the edge of the woods, but it just stopped. No sign of struggle, no sign of anything, just stopped dead, like whatever made it had vanished into thin air. Later that day, I went into town to pick up some supplies and mentioned it to a guy at the hardware store. He looked at me for a second, then said, "You're staying out by the ridge, right? Near the old Harrow place?" I nodded. He didn't say anything for a while, just kept scanning my stuff. Then quietly he said, "You shouldn't be out there alone when the storms start. Things move in the snow sometimes. Not animals." I laughed it off, but his face didn't change. He just handed me the bag and said, "If you hear something under the house, don't go outside. Whatever's under there, it don't like to be seen." That night, back at the cabin, I couldn't stop thinking about it, the sound, the tracks, the look in that man's eyes. As the sun went down, the cold settled in again, heavy and quiet. I threw another log on the fire and tried to ignore the way the shadows danced across the walls. But sometime after midnight, I heard it again. That same dragging sound from beneath the floorboards.
Only this time, it wasn't moving away, it was coming up.
Where would you look first when the room adds one? Do you hold the bridge, or do you test the door that counts the night? He holds the bridge long enough to earn a choice. The figure keeps its wrong, even stance. The lashes throw the same thin line on the cheek. The small paper corner under the base lies flat like a white breath that will not lift. The store sounds like a light rain inside long ducts. He decides to test the dock, not because he wants a chase, but because doors tell the truth when rooms will not. The freight corridor wears the color of work. Concrete holds old tracks like faint handwriting. The metal door sits quiet, heavy, sure of its weight. Above it, a little eye watches the opening the way a scale watches numbers. He puts his hand through the beam and watches the small display jump once, then settle when he draws back. The test feels right. The count feels honest. He places a small strip of receipt paper by the floor plate so the camera can see a mark that says a hand was here. He checks the alley screen the way you look through a window in a dream you do not need. Brick on brick. A rectangle of old mop water by the drain. No carnos, no shoes. A moth draws a small bright scribble and is gone. He lets the plain scene be what it is. The best kind of nothing is the kind you can play back later, and it still stays nothing. He adds simple tells that air cannot fake. He tapes a thin black thread knee high between two posts just inside the corridor, behind the beam line so it will not meet the light. A hem or a bag will bend it. A draft will not. He rubs a tiny line of chalk across the inner threshold, a pale hair that will smear if anything low drags. He folds a triangle of paper and leans it against the right jamb, point inward. Air will lift it evenly. A shin will tilt it one way. He looks at all three and feels the quiet steady itself in his hands. He lifts the small scanner to shoulder height under the metal lip above the door. The little brick answers with a soft beep, not loud, but certain, as if the air keeps a pantry of old labels tucked where no one bothers to dust. He lowers the tool and studies the underside of the header. There is a faint circle of torn foam, the kind left when a sticky thing lives past its welcome. A foot to the side, another older circle lives under a skin of dust. Between them sits a tiny nick in the paint, silver peaking. He files those 3 shapes in his head, the way you set 3 pins to mark a line. He walks back by visual stock because patience likes company. The extra rolling rack holds its form with a small card that says, "Hold for Tuesday." 2 chalk scuffs on the floor sit behind a wheel like bookends. He does not move the rack. He listens for the little rubber sigh that wheels make when they slide a thumb and stop. He hears nothing and is glad to hear nothing. Silence has the shape of a kept promise in rooms like this. At the bridge, he keeps his tools small and kind. He slides a coin under the front edge of the base, not hidden, just there. So a small ring will tell him if metal kisses money. He takes a thin plastic tail from a tag gun and lays it across the seam where plate meets carpet, one end on steel, one end on nap. If the base shifts even a small breath, the tail will snap. He sets both without ceremony and steps back to the post he chose earlier, 2 paces off, where he can see the cheek, the belt end cap, and the beginning of the long run toward the dock. The store speaks in routine lines. The escalator gives its 1 slow inch and rests like a creature that keeps an odd heartbeat. A track light gives a soft pop as it cools and then minds its manners. The vents do their long inhale and exhale. A tiny plastic tick whispers near the wig crown, the kind of sound a bobby pin makes when it finds a better tooth. He refuses to build meaning on top of it. Hair settles, pins choose a spot, that is all. He tries the scanner again as a compass, not a divining rod. At shoulder, by the bridge mouth, it gives a shy beep. 2 steps toward the dock and it answers a little stronger. 2 more and it is stronger still. When he turns to face the street windows, it grows quiet again. He turns back toward the freight side and it finds its voice. He files the slope in plain words so morning will not have to translate them. Louder toward the door, quieter toward the glass. The map in his head does not need a legend, only a direction. He checks the small white triangle under the base again. It still lies flat, neat as a folded note beneath a book. The plastic tail across the seam rests unbroken, a clear hair of light on dark. The coin waits without opinion. He does not touch any of it. He wants the room to own whatever it does next. He keeps his hands where the cameras can see them, not because someone is watching, but because that posture keeps him honest with his own nerves. He places 1 more simple marker for the long machine at the edge of the floor. At the bottom of the escalator, he tucks a strip of receipt where the rubber handrail slips under the comb. If the rail takes a long carry instead of a shy inch, it will pull the paper out of sight. He lets the strip sit and gives the machine back its hour. A quiet trick is a good trick in a building that likes to perform without warning. He tries on the shape of a call in his mind and decides to wait 1 more cycle. He likes to bring a single, clean sentence when he speaks to the overnight office. No drama, just 1 cause and 1 effect. He thinks about what that sentence could be. The door counted once with no alley picture. Or the extra figure moved enough to ring a coin. He will not chase either line. He will let the room pick which one it prefers to say out loud. He takes the long view from the desk again because 2 truths in 1 frame teach better than 1. To the right, the white cheek holds the same quiet light. To the left, the corridor to the dock sits straight as a rule. The thin thread behind the beam is a dark line between posts. The chalk hair across the threshold looks like breath you can see. The small paper triangle leans like a thought waiting to be chosen. He watches all three at once and feels the hour take its shape. The scanner warms in his palm and prints a small stub with a word he does not say because he promised himself no codes tonight. He reads it in his head and puts it away. It is enough to know the brick still believes something lives up by the header. He can wait for day to bring a ladder and the calm hands that go with ladders. He can keep the bridge without grabbing at the air. He gives himself one rule to hold for the next stretch. If the door counts without a picture, he will walk the header and look under the metal lip with a mirror from the janitor's closet. If the bridge speaks first with a small ring or a snapped tail, he will stay with the figure and let the dock wait. He likes rules that fit in one breath. They hold better than feelings do. He walks one soft loop to collect the hums that make a store after hours. Juniors keeps its 12. Menswear keeps its line. Housewares holds its quiet moons of light on steel. The windows keep their four faces against the city, glass a faint mirror for a man who prefers to be a shadow when he works. He returns to the bridge and stands where he stood before, because places learn you if you give them time. He breathes and listens. The coin under the base keeps its silence. The plastic tail keeps its clean line. The small white triangle does not curl or run. The lashes keep their thin stroke toward the same patch of carpet. He lets all of that be what it is. Nothing extra. No new words dropped in the pool to make ripples where there are none. He glances toward the dock as the building settles into a lull that belongs to this hour alone. He thinks about the way Day will want this drawn. A door that counts. A header that hides old stick-on things. A bridge that holds an extra shape and does not care to explain itself to anyone who will not wait. He can bring that to them in the morning with calm hands if the night allows him to collect it in order. If the door counts once with no picture, do you want him to fetch a mirror and look under the metal lip? Or do you want him to stay with the bridge until the figure admits itself with a ring or a snap? He keeps the bridge a little longer. The figure stands in the same wrong, even stance. The lashes throw the same thin line across the cheek. The small white paper triangle under the base stays where he left it, neat and flat. The store hums like quiet rain inside long vents. He lets that calm settle into his shoulders. He reminds himself that patience is not doing nothing. Patience is letting a place speak in its own order. He leans by his post and watches without blinking for a few breaths. Then he sees the smallest change a person can see. The white paper lifts at one corner and makes a low tent like a tiny roof. It is not much. It is not a trick of air. The vents push the hanging signs a little and let them fall. The paper does not lift and fall with them. It lifts and stays. He files that shape as a simple, useful fact. He lowers his eyes to the seam where the base meets the carpet. The clear plastic tail he laid there earlier looks a shade paler where it crosses the line. Not torn. Not yet. The little strand has that stretched look you see in tape when it is about to give up. He does not touch it. He does not talk to it with his eyes. He names it in his head in plain words. Fatigue at the seam. Then he lets the moment pass without asking more from it. He walks the freight corridor because doors tell clean truths when rooms will not. Concrete wears old marks like light handwriting. The metal door sits heavy and self-assured. He puts his hand through the beam and watches the little display jump once and come back when he withdraws. The test feels honest. He looks down at the chalk hair he drew across the inner threshold. The pale line is a single breath of dust, unbroken. The black thread between the posts, behind the beam, rides straight and calm. The triangle at the jam leans the same small degree it leaned before. He tries a trick he learned in a different building. He borrows a glass front dustpan from the janitor closet and angles it under the metal lip like a small periscope. The tilt gives him a slice of the space under the header. He sees the spring, the shaft, the binding webbing for the insulated door, and a clean crescent on one of the brackets where dust does not live, the size of a small puck. Near it, a torn ring of foam clings to paint. 12 inches away, another ring sits older and quiet under dust. He puts the dustpan back the way he found it and keeps that picture in his mind without adding any drama to it. He lifts the scanner to shoulder height under the header. The little brick gives him a soft beep that feels more certain than before, like a hand raised in a back row. He turns toward the glass and the sound fades. He turns back toward the door and the sound returns. He lowers the tool. He does not chase it around for a show. He says the slope to himself in simple language, so it will be simple on paper later. Louder by the header, quieter by the windows. He circles back by visual stock because patience likes company. The rolling rack with the hold card still kisses the chalk scuff he made to measure it. The wheel shows a faint, clean crescent just ahead of the mark, more polished than line. He does not move the rack. He listens for the small rubber note that wheels make when they slide a thumb and then stop. The room gives him no music, and that feels right. Silence is an answer too. He returns to the bridge and adds a new tell that air cannot fake. He ties a thin black thread at ankle height across the narrow aisle, from the low shelf on the end cap to the riser foot on the far side. He tucks the tape tabs deep under the shelf lips where draft cannot flick them. A hem at the wrong time will bow the line or take it down. Air will not. He steps back 2 paces to his same post and lets the line be a quiet little question the room can choose to answer. The building plays its evening songs. Far off, the escalator gives its inch and rests like a long machine that keeps an old metronome. A track head cools and pops one polite pop. The vents lift and fall in steady breaths. The receipt strip he tucked at the bottom handrail comb earlier still lies where rubber will catch it only if the rail decides on a long carry. He feels like a man who has placed small flags on a calm map and can learn from where they fall. He watches the white paper triangle again. It holds its little tent. Then, slow as a thought you almost miss, the tent grows a hair higher. The clear tail at the seam goes a shade whiter. He stays still with his hands easy and visible. He has learned that rooms sometimes answer best when a human chooses not to move. The lash shadow does not slide across the cheek. It keeps its thin stroke pointed the way it was. That is useful too. The snap comes the way small truths often come, not loud, not dramatic, just a quick, clean sound that belongs to plastic when it is asked to do more than it can. The tail across the seam lets go and one end recoils into the carpet like a hair that never wanted to stretch in the first place. The paper under the base settles 0.5 millimeter lower as if a tiny breath finished and did not need to be held anymore. He does not lean in, he does not fix it, he only names what he has in order. The seam gave, the paper lifted, the seam let go, the paper settled. He walks the freight corridor again to test the door against that little tune. The chalk hair across the inner threshold stays a single line. The black thread behind the beam rides steady and straight. The little paper triangle by the right jam keeps its odd, small lean outward. The beam tests honest and returns. The alley screen gives brick and a dull patch near the drain, and nothing else. He allows himself one quiet breath of gratitude for dullness. Dullness is strong paper in the morning. He tries the scanner once more as a polite compass, not a wand. At the bridge mouth, the sound is a shy yes. 5 steps toward the door and the yes grows. At the header lip, held at the same shoulder height, the sound is as sure as it has been all night. He does not say any numbers out loud. He does not hold the tool up like proof. He lets the gradient live in his mind like a simple arrow he can draw later with a calm hand. He sidesteps back to the bridge and checks the thread he tied at ankle height. A softened S hangs for a breath in the middle of the line and then straightens. The left tape tab is bent a hair from true, as if a hem brushed and then tried to hide the brush. He sees a tiny blue fibre caught on the paper edge under the tape. He lifts it with the corner of a receipt, folds the corner over it, and slips it into his pocket. He does not make it heavy. It can be a friend for paper later. For now, it is a single blue hair and nothing more. He looks at the coin under the front edge of the base. It shows the same slim rim it showed before. No ring, no roll, just metal under metal, waiting for a reason that does not arrive yet. He is relieved by that. He prefers one thing at a time. The paper tent shrinking and the seam giving is enough music for a single minute. He leaves the coin alone and keeps his posture steady. He takes the long view from the desk because he likes to hold 2 quiet pictures at once. To the right, the cheek keeps the same watch face of light. To the left, the door keeps its straight mouth and its small tells in place. The chalk hair is unbroken. The thread rides true. The triangle leans. The alley stays dull and honest as brick. He lets those 4 facts settle into a square in his mind and draws a clean edge around them. He thinks about calling the overnight office. He can bring one plain sentence now if they pick up. The figure at the bridge shifted a fraction. The small tail at the seam snapped. The paper under the base lifted, then settled. The scanner likes the header more than the bridge. He tries that sentence on in his head and decides to wait one more calm cycle. He would rather bring them a before and an after than a middle he cannot show. He rewrites his rule for the next stretch so it fits in a single breath. If the door counts with no picture, he will fetch the dustpan again and look under the header a second time. If the bridge speaks with a coin ring, he will stay with the figure and let the door wait for day. If both happen, he will hold his post and say both out loud without making a guess. It is a good rule because it is short, and it keeps his hands from writing the story for the room. He breathes and lets the building do what buildings do when no one asks them to perform. The escalator gives its inch and rests. The vents hold their low song. The lash shadow stays where it was. The seam is now a line without a tail. The white paper shows a small crease where the tent was. He feels the hour lift its head like it is thinking about the next thing it wants. He nods to no one and waits the way you wait for a kettle a room away. Quiet. Present. Ready to listen. Do you want him to call the overnight office now with that one calm sentence, or hold the post a little longer and see if the door or the coin speaks first? When do you stop watching and start testing for real? Tonight, he chooses simple checks a door cannot argue with. He keeps the bridge a moment longer to see if the room will blink first. The figure holds its wrong, even stance. The lashes keep their thin line on the cheek. The small paper under the base shows that same low tent it learned a few minutes ago. The clear tail at the seam is gone now because it's snapped and curled away. The coin under the front edge waits with quiet patience. He lets this stillness be a kind of answer. Then he decides to walk the dock again, not for drama, but for plain tools and plain air. The freight corridor wears old work like light handwriting. Concrete shows faint arcs where wheels have turned for years. The metal door sits heavy and sure of itself. He stands in front of the small eye that watches the opening and slips a hand through its path. The counter jumps once and returns when he withdraws. He places a thin curl of receipt paper at the corner of the floor plate where the camera can see it, a white comma to say a known hand was here. He breathes the air, dust and cardboard and the sweet trace of a mop that passed too late yesterday. He lifts his eyes to the alley screen. Brick on brick. A dull rectangle by the drain where washwater dries to film. No shoe, no bumper. A moth draws its small bright scribble and leaves the frame. He likes this kind of nothing, the kind that repeats itself when you ask for it later. He files the picture as a clean square without words that lean. He adds 3 tells that air will not fake. A black thread at knee height between 2 posts behind the beamline, taped under the backs where a draft cannot flick it. A hairline of chalk across the inner threshold, so thin it looks like a breath until something low drags and smears it. A small paper triangle leaned at the right jam, point inward, so a shin will tip it one way and air another. He looks at all 3 in order and feels the hour steady under his shoes. He raises the little scanner to his shoulder and holds it under the metal lip above the door. It answers with a soft beep that sounds a shade more sure than before. He turns toward the glass at the far end, and the sound fades. He turns back toward the header, and the sound returns. He lowers the tool and studies the underside with his eyes. There is a thin ring of torn foam where a sticky thing once lived. A foot to the side, a second ring sleeps under dust, like an old scab that is not ready to leave. Between the 2, a tiny nick in the paint glints silver. He lets those 3 points rest in his mind like stars you can use if you need to steer. On the way back, he passes visual stock because patience likes company. The rolling rack with the hold card kisses the chalk nick he left behind the right wheel. The rubber shows a faint, clean crescent just ahead of the mark. He does not move it. He listens for the tiny rubber note that means a thumb of motion and then a stop. The cage keeps its silence, and the silence feels like a kept promise. He keeps walking. At the bridge, he adds 2 small helps for the room to use if it feels like speaking. He slides a second coin behind the plate at the rear edge, a twin to the one at the front, so a pivot will ring one way and then the other. He lays a thin plastic tie across the seam, front to back this time, not left to right, so a turn will test it differently. He does both without ceremony and steps back to his post where he can see the cheek, the belt end cap, and the long run toward the door, with one slow turn of the head. The building plays its known songs, the escalator gives its single inch and rests, a long machine keeping a private clock. A track head cools and offers one polite pop. The vents breathe in and out like a thoughtful thing. Far off, housewares lets China whisper once, and then hush. Near him, a small plastic tick at the wig crown joins and then goes quiet again, the way a pin finds and keeps a better tooth. He refuses all urge to stack meaning on top of these noises. He lets them be what they are, which is a rhythm that belongs to this place at this hour. He uses the scanner like a compass instead of a wand. At the bridge mouth, it gives a shy yes. 2 steps toward the door, the yes grows. 5 steps, stronger still. When he faces the windows, the sound goes soft. When he turns back toward the header, the sound becomes a small, steady light. He likes gradients more than guesses. He tucks the arrow in his head and keeps his hands still. He checks his small flags. The white paper under the base holds its low tent. The front coin shows the same slim rim of light. The new plastic tie across the seam sits whole, thin and pale. The ankle-high thread he tied across the narrow aisle rides straight as a taut horizon. He folds all of this into an easy picture he could hand to a person who was not here and make them feel present. He chooses to speak to the overnight office with one sentence that can hold on its own. He keeps his voice low and steady. He says there is an extra figure at the bridge that does not match the sheet, that he has set small tells and is holding the post, that the door tests clean, that he is getting soft beeps under the header, where sticky rings and a clean crescent sit. He says there is no alarm and no person. He says he will stay with both places at once and will call back if either picture changes. A calm voice thanks him and tells him to hold. He feels the small lift of being heard and the larger weight of being left to do the simple work well. He takes a slow breath to reset the room inside his head. The lashes on the cheek keep their thin line aimed the same way. The paper triangle under the base is still a white roof. The coin says nothing. The tie says nothing. He does not coax them. The escalator handrail creeps its inch and rests. The little strip of receipt he tucked at the bottom comb is still there, brave and silly, waiting for a long carry that might never come. He smiles at the thought and lets it go. He returns to the dock again because rooms often answer when you leave them alone. The thread behind the beam holds steady. The chalk line across the inner threshold is still a single hair. The paper triangle at the right jamb leans the same polite outward degree. The alley screen gives brick and the dull rectangle and nothing else. He raises the scanner to his shoulder at the header and hears the same soft, sure note the tool has found all night. He lowers it and feels the slow tilt of the hour toward a thing that will either be explained with hands and a ladder or left as a story the morning will not like. He gives the cage one more glance on the way back. The wheel holds its small crescent of polish. The card still says hold for Tuesday. He draws no lines between this and the bridge. Inches are allowed to be inches without mosaics. He returns to the bridge and takes his post again with his hands where the cameras would like them. He can feel a minute coming the way you feel a kettle just before it sings. A breath and a half later, the ankle-height thread across the narrow aisle takes a small bow in the middle, not a sag from air, but a pluck from cloth, and then goes straight again. He steps in only far enough to see the left tab of tape. It is bent a shade from square as if a hem brushed it and tried to pretend it did not. On the tape he sees a small blue fibre, fine as a hair from the edge of a jacket sleeve. He lifts it with the corner of a receipt, folds it, and puts it away. He does not celebrate this, he adds it to the quiet company of facts that behave when you lay them flat. He checks the seam. The new plastic tie that runs front to back shines like a drawn hair. The front coin and the rear coin both keep their tongues. The paper under the base holds the same small roofline. The lash shadow has moved not at all. He does not ask for more. He will not snatch at the air for proof to bring today. He prefers proof to arrive on its own legs and speak in a voice that is small and sure. He walks to the desk for the far view that lets him hold two clean pictures at once. To the right, the white cheek keeps its watch. To the left, the corridor sits like a line you could draw with a ruler, with the thread behind the beam, the chalk hair across the inner threshold, and the triangle at the right jamb, all visible in one glance. He lets his eyes draw a box around those three. Box means they kept their shape. Box means he can be patient without being foolish. He talks quietly to himself the way good workers do when no one is near. He says the next fair step out loud so his body will trust it. If the door counts without a picture, he will fetch the dustpan again and take another look under the lip. If the bridge speaks first with a ring or a break, he will stay and let the door wait for day. If nothing moves, he will keep both posts until the hour rolls toward a minute the printer likes. The store breathes, the vents hum steady. The escalator waits, the cheek holds its coin of light. The door holds its clean mouth. He feels the hour shift a little like a deck that knows a swell is under it. He is not nervous, he is ready. He is given the building easy ways to talk. He has a place to stand that holds both answers. He trusts that the next thing will be small and clear in the way the right things often are. Do you want him to look under the header with the dustpan mirror again now, or hold the bridge until one of the coins sings or the plastic tie gives up? Some minutes choose the night for you. When that minute comes, do you trust the count or your eyes? He holds the post he picked. One slow turn of his head shows both worlds. To the right, the white cheek under track light, the belt end cap, the small white triangle tucked under the base. To the left, the long corridor to the freight door with its quiet little eye above the opening. The store breathes like rain inside long vents. He lets the room settle him. He does not hurry the hour. He waits to see which way the night leans. The figure at the bridge keeps its even wrong stance, feet too parallel, hands not turned in. The lash shadow draws the same thin line across the cheek. The front coin under the base shows a slim rim of light. The rear coin behind the plate shows a bright ring. The plastic tie that runs front to back across the seam is still whole, a pale hair of shine. The ankle-high thread he tied across the narrow aisle rides straight, tape tabs tucked deep under the shelf lips. He counts all these truths in a calm row and asks for nothing extra from any of them. He looks down the freight corridor and checks the 3 small helps he gave himself. The black thread behind the beam rides taut between the posts. The chalk hair across the inner threshold is one faint breath of dust. The little paper triangle at the right jamb leans its odd single degree outward. The alley screen shows brick upon brick and a dull patch by the drain where wash water once sat. He lets that picture be what it is. The best kind of nothing is the kind that will still be nothing when you look again. The store gives him a tiny run of the sounds it likes at this hour. The escalator offers one slow inch and rests. A track head cools and pops once, then minds its manners. In housewares, China whispers bowl to bowl and settles. Near the bridge, a pin at the wig crown finds a kinder tooth and goes quiet again. He lets the rhythm pass through him the way a harbour lets wind pass through its masts. No fear, no chase. Just a list a person can repeat. Then the minute arrives, the way a kettle sings. He does not have a clock in his hand. He knows it by the way 3 small things answer together. The audit printer wakes at the desk and begins its friendly clatter. The little eye at the freight door shows a single hop in its display and holds. The handrail at the bottom of the escalator glides more than an inch, a long carry, and the thin strip of receipt he tucked at the comb is kissed and drawn under, like a white fish sliding into dark water. 3 small answers in a single breath. He stands very still so he can hear if the room wants to say a 4th. It does. The front coin sings a clear, bright ring from under the base, not loud, not shy, the sound metal makes when weight decides a fraction of an inch. A heartbeat later, the rear coin gives a lower answer, more hum than bell, as if the base turned its thought toward the freight side and then stopped to consider it. The white triangle under the plate flattens as if a small tent chose to be a page again. The plastic tie that runs front to back across the seam holds for a second, stretches, and then gives up with a soft snap. He lets the sounds land. He does not lunge. He does not speak to the air. He names each thing once in his mind in the order it occurred, and keeps his hands where the cameras would like them. He steps in just enough to see the heel at the right edge of the plate. The carpet nap there wears a new, fine parenthesis of gloss, a crescent bright enough to catch the light if you meet it with the right angle. He sets a tiny chalk tooth at the present heel, and a second tooth where it rested before, and now there is a small fan of marks that prefers the freight side by a breath. He does not make a claim with this, he only draws what he can show. He tests the freight corridor without moving faster than his breath. The beam reads as if one passage just occurred and then kept its number. The black thread behind the beam rides straight. The chalk hair across the inner threshold is unbroken. The paper triangle at the jamb leans the same odd outward lean. The alley screen remains brick and dull patch and nothing else. He sees no shoe and no sleeve. He notes it with the quiet relief that good dullness brings. He raises the small scanner to shoulder height under the header and holds. The little brick answers with its clearest yes of the night. He lowers it and turns toward the windows, and the sound fades to near silence. He turns back, and it returns. He does not speak the code printed on the thin strip it spits out. He does not need it for tonight. It is enough to know that the header likes to be heard, and that the bridge likes to move in inches you can chart with chalk and coins. He calls the overnight office with a single, clean sentence a person can write down while they listen. He says the door counted once and the alley picture did not change. He says the scanner still favors the header. He says the figure at the bridge gave a small ring at the front coin and a lower one at the rear, and that the thin tie across the seam snapped. He says he is holding both places and will check the door again, and that the store is calm and empty of people. The voice thanks him and tells him to keep his post. He puts the receiver down the way you set down a glass on a table you do not own. He borrows the glass front dustpan again and makes a small mirror under the header lip. The same slice of the world looks back, the spring, the shaft, the binding web, the clean crescent on the bracket where dust cannot live, and the pale ring of torn foam where a sticky thing once liked to be. The shape seems a breath wider in this light, or his eyes want it to be. He does not argue with himself. He files it as looks wider and lets it wait for a ladder and daylight. He returns to the bridge and listens for any echo the coins might want to give him. Silence now. The front coin shows less of its face to the light, a shy crescent instead of a half. The rear coin shines a neat rim and keeps its answer to itself. The small white paper that flattened lies level as a tiny road. The lash shadow aims the way it did before, a narrow handwriting across the cheek that prefers the freight side by a degree you could miss if you were not already looking for a reason to measure. He kneels and studies the seam where the thin tie snapped. The little broken end rests in the carpet pile like a stray hair that chose to be honest. He does not pull it out. He leaves it where it lies, so morning can see it the way he saw it. He adds one more chalk tooth to the heel map and steps back. The 3 marks now sketch a small turn a watch hand could walk. He likes this kind of proof. It is quiet. It does not need a voice. He walks the freight corridor one more time, not for proof, but for the comfort of repeating a sentence until it knows itself. The beam holds the count it took. The thread behind it is a line between posts. The chalk hair across the inner threshold is one breath in dust. The paper triangle at the right jamb leans like a person who wants to ask a question and cannot find the start of it. The alley stays brick. He raises the scanner once more to shoulder height and gets the same steady yes under the metal lip. He thanks the room under his breath for being willing to repeat itself. He circles past visual stock because patience likes a companion even after a minute like that. The rolling rack with the hold card sits where he left it. The wheel kisses his chalk nick. The faint crescent of polish ahead of the mark is no larger than it was. He does not drag the rack to teach it anything. He lets it be as it is. Not every crescent wants to belong to your story. He sets himself again in the place where one slow turn shows both worlds. He can feel the tide of the hour change. There will be daylight at the dock soon enough, and a ladder, and hands that can take a sticky ring out of a header without breaking any more paint. Here at the bridge there will be a neat record of small inches made by coins and chalk and thread. He will hand those 2 pictures today without a speech. He will not decide what they mean for anyone else. He writes the next choice in his mind as if he were writing it for someone who was not here. Hold both posts until the building gives you one more small answer. If the door counts again with no picture, look under the lip once more with the glass, and then wait for the ladder. If the bridge speaks again with a clear ring or a fresh mark, stay and watch the rest of the turn. The difference is simple. One is about a door that likes to count. The other is about a figure that likes to move in inches. He can honor both without leaving his feet. He breathes once more with the room. The vents do their low song. The escalator rests after its long carry. The cheek holds its coin of light. The thin, broken end of the tie at the seam rests like a proof too small to argue with. He does not chase silence for noise. He keeps the silence as part of the proof. He lets the minute be the minute he will remember for what it was, and not for the story it could have been. When a room starts talking in inches, do you wait for dawn, or do you ask the night for one more clear answer? He keeps both posts the way a bridge keeps 2 shores. To the right is the white cheek under a coin of light, the belt end cap, the small white paper that once made a roof, and now lies flat. To the left is the long corridor to the freight door, with its quiet eye above the opening and 3 small tells that air will not fake. The building breathes like a slow tide inside its vents. He decides the next move should be a gentle one. He will test without pushing. He will listen without asking for theatre. He starts with the bridge because it has manners when you do. The figure stands in its even, wrong stance, feet 2 parallel, hands not turned in. The lash shadow keeps the same thin stroke across the cheek, a line that prefers the freight side by a degree. The front coin under the base shows only a thin rim now. The rear coin shows a neat ring of light. The plastic tie he laid front to back across the seam has already given up. Its broken end rests in the carpet pile like a stray hair. The chalk teeth at the heel map sit in a small fan a watch hand could walk. He reads them like a quiet sentence and leaves them alone. He glides back to the freight corridor for air that answers in facts. The black thread behind the beam rides taut between the posts. The chalk hair across the inner threshold is a single breath unbroken. The small paper triangle at the right jamb keeps its odd tiny lean outward. He slips a hand through the beam because a door believes hands. The counter jumps once and returns when he withdraws. He lifts the scanner to shoulder height under the metal lip and listens for its answer. It gives a soft yes, steadier than shy, quieter than bold. He drops the tool to his side and lets the sound fade, so his head will not chase it. He borrows the glass front dustpan again and makes a little mirror under the header lip. The same slice of the world shows itself, the spring, the shaft, the binding webbing, and a neat, clean crescent on the bracket where dust refuses to live. He studies the torn ring of foam near it, the kind of scar a sticky puck leaves behind. A foot to the side, another ring sleeps under dust like an old bandage. He holds the picture in his mind without leaning his weight on it. Ladders belong to daylight. He is here to make a map and hand it today with calm hands. On the way back, he stops at visual stock because Patience likes a walking partner. The rolling rack with the hold card kisses the chalk nick he made behind the right wheel. A faint, polished crescent sits just ahead of the mark, no wider than a thumb. He does not move the rack. He listens for the rubber sigh that means a wheel slid a small inch, and then thought better of it. The cage keeps its promise of silence. He takes that promise with him. At the bridge he adds one more small help that air cannot fake. He lays a thin nylon crossbar across the seam, left to right this time, a tiny plastic letter that will snap if the base skates by even a breath. He does it with 2 fingers and no ceremony. He steps back to the post that holds both pictures in one slow turn. He lets the building decide when to speak and how. The escalator gives its soft inch and rests. In housewares, one bowl lifts and settles against another like a whisper between plates. A single track head pops and then grows still. The vents hold their low rein. He hears a tiny plastic tick at the wig crown, the sound of a bobby pin admitting it has found a better tooth. He refuses to dress the noise in meaning. He lets it be hair and pin and nothing more. He uses the scanner like a compass, not a magic trick. At the bridge mouth it gives a pale yes. 2 steps toward the freight side, the yes grows warmer. 5 more steps and it is steady. He turns toward the windows and it falls to a hush. He turns toward the header and it answers again. He keeps the gradient as a simple arrow in his mind. West is louder, east is quiet. He does not need more than that for now. He checks the small white paper under the base. It lies flat, no roof, no curl. The front coin is quiet, the rear coin is quiet. The nylon crossbar rests where he laid it across the seam, a clear hair in the light. The ankle-height thread across the narrow aisle rides straight and strict. He stands with his hands where the cameras can see them, not for show, but because posture changes the way the mind looks at rooms. Open hands make quieter stories. He calls the overnight office and uses the kind of sentence that any person can write down without asking him to repeat. He says the door counted once with no change in the alley picture and then stayed honest. He says the header likes to answer the scanner. He says the figure at the bridge gave a front ring and a rear hum earlier, that a thin tie snapped, and that all small tells are holding now. He says he is keeping both posts. The voice on the other end thanks him and asks if he needs anyone to come. He says not yet. He says daylight, and a ladder will do. He puts the phone back in its cradle and lets the small fact of being heard wash over him without changing the hour. He takes a slow lap because sometimes a lap is a way to shake loose the next answer. Juniors keeps its 12. Menswear keeps its quiet row of suits. The camel coat waits as if it understands shifts, not stories. Housewares holds its moons of light on steel and glass. The windows keep their 4 faces to the city, the glass a faint mirror for a person who prefers to be a shadow at work. He arrives back at the bridge with his head rinsed clean by small order. The ankle-height thread across the narrow aisle bows and lifts in the time it takes a person to look down and then up. Not a sag from air, a pluck from cloth. He steps in only far enough to see the left tape tab. It is bent a shade off square. A tiny blue hair sits tucked against the paper edge. He lifts it with a receipt corner and folds it away. He does not baptize it as proof. He lets it rest as a companion that will not argue when morning asks for friends. He tilts the flashlight low and skims the carpet nap by the right heel. The bright parenthesis he drew earlier is a breath longer now, not by much, but by enough to catch. He adds a thin chalk tooth at the present heel and sees the fan widen like a hand opening by one finger. No rush, no claim, just a little more arc on a quiet map. He looks to the freight corridor and tests his 3 small guards. The thread behind the beam rides strict. The chalk hair across the inner threshold holds its single line. The small paper triangle at the right jamb leans its 1 degree outward like a thought that is almost a sentence. The alley screen is brick and a dull patch and nothing else. He slips his hand through the beam and watches the number hop and return. He raises the scanner to the header and hears the same sure yes. He lets the pattern be a pattern and does not try to make it sing. He returns to the bridge and adds a tell for sound because sound keeps people honest. He slides a thin coin on edge under the side of the plate, not front, not rear, but at the right edge where a pivot would kiss first. A light ring from that side will be a different voice than the front bell or the rear hum. He steps back and gives the bass its dignity. He does not poke at it. He does not dare it. He gives it a stage and refuses to clap. The building offers one of its regulars again. The escalator takes its inch, thinks about a longer carry, and then chooses to rest. The lash shadow keeps its thin line. The nylon crossbar across the seam shines like a hair and stays whole. The small white paper keeps its flat. His breathing lengthens to match the vents. He feels the night gather itself for the next small thing, the way a lake gathers itself before a swallow touches it and is gone. When it comes, it is quiet enough that only a person who wanted to hear it would. A tiny ring from the right edge, higher than the front, lighter than the rear. The new coin answers like a glass gently touched with a nail. Not a drag, not a scrape, a kiss and a pull away. He does not lunge, he does not speak to the room. He lowers the light and checks the seam. The nylon crossbar left to right is still whole. The chalk fan by the heel wants another tooth. He gives it one, thin and neat, just a breath beyond the last. He decides that is the last inch he will ask the night to give him. Day will be here soon enough with a ladder and a calm pair of hands. He glides to the desk and stands where one slow turn shows both worlds once more. The cheek keeps its coin of light. The freight door holds its clean mouth. The thread behind the beam is a dark line. The chalk hair is a pale line. The small triangle leans a little, not more, not less. The hour feels done with choosing. It wants the morning to hold the map. He makes a simple plan for dawn that any person could follow with warm coffee and clear eyes. Start at the header, lift the lip with care. Look for a sticky puck tucked at the bracket where the clean crescent lives. Take it down without tearing paint. Scan it and let the little brick say yes a last time. Then go to the bridge. Roll the figure away with gentle hands. Check the plate for rubs that match the chalk. Photograph the carpet arcs while the light is still low and kind. Set the hands of the form the way the team likes, 2 rules, and a toe, and put it in the cage until the story belongs to paper more than air. He lets the plan sit and does not hold it tight. He checks both places one last time before the hour tilts. The coins are quiet. The lash shadow is thin and true. The seam shows one bright hair of nylon and one broken memory under it. The chalk fan looks like a small grin. The thread behind the beam is a held string. The chalk hair is a held breath. The triangle is a held thought. The night has been generous enough. And when a knight draws a clear arrow, do you follow it to the door or hold your ground until the room admits one last inch? He keeps both posts because both have earned it. To his right, the white cheek under a coin of light, the belt end cap, the quiet seam, the coins that have already told their small truths. To his left, the long corridor to the freight door with its eye, its thread, its chalk hair, and its leaning paper triangle. The building breathes like a steady tide. He decides to stand still and let the next answer come to him. The figure keeps its even, wrong stance, feet 2 parallel, hands not turned in. The lash shadow draws the same thin line across the cheek, a line that prefers the freight side by a breath. The front coin shows only the slimmest rim of light. The rear coin shows a neat ring. The side coin waits where he placed it. The nylon crossbar left to right holds where he set it. The The chalk teeth by the heel look like a small fan that has opened one finger more than it meant to. He sweeps his eyes to the freight side. The black thread behind the beam rides taut between the posts. The chalk hair across the inner threshold is a single, pale breath. The paper triangle at the right jamb keeps its odd lean outward. The alley screen shows brick and the dull patch by the drain, and nothing else. He is glad for that kind of quiet. The best kind of nothing is the kind that repeats when you ask it to. The store plays a short bar of its regular song. The escalator takes one slow inch and rests. A track head offers a single soft pop, and then minds its manners. China whispers once in housewares and settles. A small plastic tick near the wig crown announces a pin making up its mind. He lets each sound pass through him and leave him as it found him. He looks at the seam. The nylon crossbar is still whole. The broken memory of the earlier tie lies in the carpet like a quiet thread. The white paper that once made a small roof now lies flat without drama. He neither fixes nor tests. He lets the room own whatever it does next. He lifts the small scanner to shoulder height at the bridge mouth. It gives a modest yes. He takes 2 steps toward the freight side. The yes grows warmer. 2 more. Warmer still. At the header lip, it is a steady, sure answer. He turns toward the windows, and the sound thins to almost nothing. He turns back toward the header, and the answer returns. He tucks that slope in his mind as one clean arrow. He does not need any other picture to explain it. He sets the scanner down and borrows stillness again. He can feel the night lean the way a boat leans when a low swell passes under it. He is not uneasy. He has given the building easy ways to speak. Paper at the base, thread at the aisle, coins at 3 edges, thread behind the beam, chalk on the threshold, a small triangle at the jamb, a quiet mirror under the header. All the questions are simple. The answers arrive in small voices. They arrive together the way a kettle sings at the moment water agrees. The audit printer wakes and hums its friendly chatter. At the freight door, the little display hops once and holds. The handrail at the bottom of the escalator glides a longer carry and swallows the receipt strip he tucked in place earlier. 3 small yes answers, each in its lane, each arriving within 1 breath. The coins speak next. The front coin rings with a clear bell and stops. The rear coin gives a lower hum, as if the bass turned a thought a little farther toward the freight side. The side coin answers with a tiny higher note at the right edge, like a thin glass touched and left. The nylon crossbar across the seam stretches, thinks about it, and then decides to hold. The lash shadow on the cheek keeps its thin stroke, pointed toward the same patch of carpet. He steps in only far enough to see the right heel. The carpet nap there wears a new, fine crescent of gloss. He adds a small chalk tooth at the present heel, a neat twin to the last one. The fan grows by a hair. It is not a story. It is a line you can show to another person without saying much at all. He glides down the freight corridor on the strength of that little chorus. The beam test is honest. 1 hop. Then a calm face. The thread behind the beam rides straight. The chalk hair across the inner threshold is unbroken, a held breath in dust. The small triangle at the jamb keeps its odd lean outward, as if a quiet thought refuses to sit up straight. The alley shows brick and the dull patch, and no one at all. He lifts the scanner to shoulder height under the metal lip. It answers with its surest note of the night. He lowers it and raises the glass front dustpan and angles a small view into the space above the header again. The same slice of the world lives there. Spring, shaft, binding web, a clean crescent on the bracket where dust will not stay. The faint torn ring of foam where a sticky thing lived once and wanted to live again. A foot away, another older ring dozes under dust, like a lesson everyone forgot to learn. He breathes out and lets that picture rest. Ladders belong today. Pulling belongs to calm hands and a second pair of eyes. He turns back to the sales floor, passes visual stock, hears no rubber note from the wheel, and lets that silence be another square he can hand to morning without apology. At the bridge he reads his small flags before they speak again. The white paper under the plate lies flat. The nylon crossbar still spans the seam. The side coin shows a slim rim of light. The front coin shows almost none. The rear coin shines a neat ring. The ankle-high thread across the narrow aisle rides straight. That thread takes a bow, as if a careful hem had passed. It holds a soft curve for a beat, and then lifts back to a line. He steps in just enough to see the left tape tab. It sits bent a shade off square. On the tape edge, a fine blue fibre waits without complaint. He lifts it with the corner of a receipt, folds it under, and slips it into his pocket. He does not give the fibre a speech. It will be a quiet friend for paper later. He checks the seam. The crossbar still holds. He touches nothing else. He keeps his hands where the cameras can see them. He favours posture over motion. Posture keeps rooms from borrowing your need for an answer. He tips the light at the right heel and watches the bright parenthesis smile a little wider. He gives the fan a new tooth, thin and neat, no larger than the last. He returns to the desk and makes a single call with a single sentence. He says the door took one count without a picture and stayed calm. He says the header answers the scanner stronger than anywhere else. He says the bass at the bridge rang in 3 voices and the seam crossbar held. He says he is keeping both posts and that the store is empty of people. He asks for a ladder at daybreak and calm hands to open the header. The voice thanks him and tells him to hold. He sets the phone down like a glass on a table and lets the hour return to its own breath. He takes a slow walk through juniors, menswear and housewares again to keep his head simple. 12 forms, suits in line, 2 aprons on demo forms, kettles with their small moons of light. The windows face the city like old friends. The glass he wiped earlier holds a tiny lint constellation in the corner like a cheap map of stars. He is grateful for small habits that repeat. They keep the night from inventing itself. Back at the bridge, he watches without blinking. He waits to see if the room would like to spend 1 more inch. The coins keep still. The crossbar stays whole. The lash shadow does not slide. The white paper keeps its flat. He turns his head and gives the dock one long, plain look. The thread behind the beam holds its straight answer. The chalk hair is a thin horizon. The triangle by the right jamb leans a polite degree, and no more. He thinks about what morning will need. They will need a map that any person can follow, a ladder placed at the header, 2 screws eased, a careful hand under the lip, a look at the bracket with the clean crescent, a sticky puck taken down if it is there, bagged and scanned to let the little brick say yes a last time, a photo of the lip, the rings and the bracket, a note on the screws, a wipe with a dry cloth, calm steps and no damage. They will need a second map for the bridge, a gentle roll away, a look under the plate, 2 bright rubs on steel where any turn wrote itself, a photo of the chalk fan at the heel while the light is still kind, a brush of the carpet to see if the gloss fades, a reset of the stance to the store standard, hands in, 1 toe out, weight back. The figure placed in the cage until count and records agree. He holds both maps in his mind and lets the night shrink back to the size of small sounds. The escalator takes a single inch and rests. China whispers once. The vents keep their low reign. The lobby clock he cannot see still clicks somewhere behind the walls. He does not chase a time. He waits for the room to finish the sentence it has been writing for him. The last small answer is a quiet one. The right edge coin gives a light kiss and then silence. The crossbar across the seam stays whole. The white paper does not lift. The lash shadow stays thin and true. He adds one last chalk tooth to the fan because the light allows it. He knows that is enough inches for night. He sets himself for dawn. He will hold the bridge until he hears the morning key. He will meet the first person with a ladder at the dock. He will show them the glass periscope trick and then hand it back. He will use small words and a small voice. He will let the room keep its dignity. He will give day a record that does not need a storyteller. When morning knocks, do you open the door that counted, or do you roll the figure that would not stand right? Today, he starts with the door. The last minutes before dawn are soft. The vents breathe like a slow tide. The escalator rests after its long carry. At the bridge, the coins are quiet. The seam keeps its pale crossbar like a single hair set straight. The chalk fan at the heel waits in a small smile. Down the freight corridor, the thread between posts is a held string. The chalk line across the inner threshold is a held breath. The little paper triangle by the right jam leans the way a thought leans when it wants to be said and is not ready. He keeps both pictures in one slow turn of his head and lets the hour end without hurry. Keys touch the street doors and tell a small morning truth. Metal greets metal with a brighter sound than night makes. The manager steps in with a folder under her arm and a kind face that prefers plain words. Visual comes in behind her with hair tied up and a carpenter pencil tucked like a wand. Maintenance rolls a ladder that knows its work. Loss prevention arrives with a legal pad and a coffee he hardly drinks. No one raises a voice. They let the building keep its quiet tone. He gives them the night in one straight line. The floor had one more form than the sheet. The bridge held the extra. The stance was wrong. Coins rang in small ways. The seam told its own story. The door counted twice without a picture. The air under the header liked to answer the scanner. He says he set small tells at both places and watched them in turn. He says the room was steady. He says there were no people and no alarm. He asks to open the header first, because doors tell the truth when rooms will not. They agree without a speech. They walk the freight corridor together. The ladder lands under the metal lip with the care you use when a thing belongs to everyone. Maintenance checks the feet. He checks the screws. He takes a breath and loosens them with the patience of a person who knows paint will forgive a careful hand. He eases the trim and shows the small space to morning. The slice above the door is what the glass dustpan showed in the dark. A spring, a shaft, binder webbing that holds the insulated curtain like a belt, and on the bracket a clean crescent where dust refused to live. Near it sits a torn ring of foam, the kind you find when a sticker wanted to be permanent. A foot away, another ring sleeps under dust like an old lesson. Tucked at the edge is a flat black puck, the size of a cookie. Its back is a mix of old glue and new glue. It wears the story on its face, once stuck, then pulled, then stuck again. He lifts the small scanner to shoulder height. The little brick answers with its surest yes of the 2 nights. Maintenance holds the puck without yanking. He pries it gently with a painter blade, the way you lift a label you want to save. The glue sighs. The puck comes free with a sound like tape set down on a table. Loss prevention opens a zipper bag. The puck goes in like a bug under glass. The scanner speaks again from the bag with a warm answer. and then grows shy when the bag moves away from the header lip. Plain cause, plain effect. Everyone in the corridor lets out a breath they did not know they held. They look at the bracket once more. Clean crescent, foam ring, tiny silver nick. Maintenance wipes the lip with a dry cloth so the metal will not look like it was scalded. Loss prevention takes simple photos. The manager nods once like a person who likes a neat file. Visual glances up and says they used pucks like this on holiday towers last year and forgot one now and then when a plan changed. No one blames anyone. They write the morning in their heads with simple words. Found. Lifted. Bagged. Quiet now. They check the little eye that watches the opening. The counter is calm. The thread behind the beam is still a string between posts. The chalk hair across the inner threshold is still one breath. The paper triangle at the right jamb leans the same mild degree outward. The alley screen is brick and a dull patch by the drain, and nothing else. The best kind of nothing is the kind that repeats when you ask it with friends standing there. They let the door be a door again. They walk back to the bridge because rooms also get their turn. The white cheek under the coin of light holds still. The stance is still wrong. Feet too parallel. Hands not turned in. Visual makes a small face as if a shoe were on the wrong foot. She says they would never leave hands like that. She shows the standard with her own hands. Hands in, one toe out, weight back. The figure looks like it is waiting for an elevator that will never open. Everyone sees it once they look. He kneels without touching the ankle and shows them the seam. The pale crossbar left to right still spans the line. The broken memory of the earlier tie lies in carpet like a strand of hair that chose to be honest. He tilts the light low and shows the chalk fan at the heel. 3 neat teeth in a shallow arc that prefers the freight side by small inches. It does not look like much. It does not need to. It looks like what it is. He points to the coins and tells the little bells the night played. A front ring, a lower rear hum, a tiny edge kiss from the right. No drama, just notes. Visual and maintenance do the careful part together. They lift at the plate with gloved fingers and almost no weight. The front coin sings the bright word it learned last night and slides free. The rear coin murmurs and slides free. The edge coin gives a small kiss. Under the lip of the plate, where steel met motion, 2 bright rubs live on paint like shiny commas. The chalk fan in carpet matches their attitude. The manager does not need to be told what that means. Loss prevention takes a photo while the light is still kind. They roll the figure a short way onto a Z-rack. The rubber wheel makes a polite sigh and then keeps quiet. Visual checks the base ring. She says this one is an older vendor. The stamp is not theirs. She looks under the wig and says there is no shop mark on the crown. She sets the hands to the standard as if she were correcting a small posture in a dancer. Hands in, 1 toe out, weight back. The wrong stance is over. They wheel the figure to the cage and clip a card to it that says hold. The air at the bridge feels like a page finally turned. They clean the scene without erasing it. The pale crossbar across the seam is lifted and bagged so it can live in a file. The chalk fan is traced into a notebook and then brushed with a soft hand, so the carpet can be carpet again. The coins go back to petty cash with a small note that says used as tells. The small white paper that once made a roof goes in the same envelope as the blue fibers that love to be caught. Small things like friends. They will not argue when morning tells the story to someone who was not there. They reconcile the count the way a good shop reconciles a till. The sheet said 62 last night. The floor held 63. The extra was this one. The windows still hold 4. The cage holds 9 now that the extra has come home. Visual writes the new truth on her copy. The manager writes it on hers. He likes that the numbers feel like clean shirts when they are spoken out loud by 2 people at once. They test the air near the header one more time because it is nice to see a picture become simple. He holds the small scanner at shoulder height under the lip. It is quiet now. He moves to the side, quiet. He moves back under the bracket. Quiet. The little brick has no more to say here. It says yes only to the bag where the puck sits like a sleepy coin. That is the sound you want at a door in daylight. No talk unless you ask. The manager asks for a short list that anyone can follow next week. He keeps the words plain. Check soffits over doors for any old sticky rings. Do not pull hard. Lift with patience. Bag what you find. Scan it once. Wipe the lip. Take one picture before and one after. At the bridge, set hands to the standard and stick to it. If a figure has no shop mark, write down where it came from. If a closing sheet and a floor count disagree, walk the room twice before you call. Air likes to make stories. Floors like to make lines. Start with lines. They walk one last loop as a group because it is decent to let a building have witnesses when it has told the truth. Juniors keeps 12. Menswear keeps its polite row. Housewares holds 2 aprons that look ready to teach. The windows send 4 faces to the street. The glass that wore a small lint constellation at the corner is cleaned by a day hand without a fuss. He does not mind losing that map of cheap stars. It served its hour. He signs his name small in the morning book and writes one sentence that uses no extra words. Door made counts with no picture. Sticky puck found above bracket. Removed, bagged, quiet now. Extra figure rolled to cage, stance corrected. Floor and sheet agree. He leaves space for the manager to add her line, and she does. It is a simple echo. That is how rooms should end a night when they can. He stands alone by the bridge for a breath after the others walk on. The white cheek under a coin of light looks like any clean display again. The seam is plain. The carpet holds a faint memory of chalk, and then lets it go. He thinks about the hour and likes that it needed no heroes. It needed a ladder, a bag, a handful of small tells, and a person who would wait for minutes to agree. That is honest work. He is glad it felt like that. At the dock he looks once more at the lip where the puck had loved to sit. It looks like metal that has never met glue. He thanks the ladder with a hand on the rail the way some people thank a chair. He thanks the little brick for speaking and for being willing to be quiet. He thanks the thread, the chalk, and the paper triangle for telling the truth in small ways that even air cannot fake. Then he goes back to the desk and centers the bell with a finger because he likes the look of things that point north. When a strange night turns simple in daylight, do you file it and move on, or do you turn it into a rule anyone can use? Morning settles in like warm light on paper. The ladder is rolled away. The puck sits in a clear bag on the manager's desk like a quiet button. The extra figure waits in the cage with a neat card clipped to its wrist. The store smells like lemon and dust and plans. He stands a step back and lets day take the lead because that is what good nights do when the sun shows up. Loss prevention gathers 3 short proofs on a table. The puck in its bag, 2 photos of the header lip before and after. A photo of the shallow chalk fan at the heel by the bridge. No speeches. No arrows drawn with red ink. The manager nods once. Visual nods once. Maintenance nods once. Everyone likes the shape of a small file that closes with a clean click. They make a training rule in plain words that will still make sense at 5 in the morning on a Friday. Check under door lips once a month. Lift sticky things with care, not force. Bag what you find. Scan it one time. Wipe the lip dry. Take one picture before and one after. If a floor count and a sheet disagree, walk the floor twice. Set hands on forms to the standard every time. If a figure has no shop mark, tag it, track where it came from. Start with lines, end with calm. Visual tapes the hand standard on the back room door at eye level, hands in, one toe out, weight back. The words look like a small promise to the floor and a relief to any new person who might be asked to fix a stance at 10 to close. He likes rules that fit on a card and can be understood at a glance. They stop rooms from inventing stories when no one has time for stories. Maintenance checks other doors before lunch. 2 old foam rings show up over a side hallway they hardly use. A long screwdriver and a patient wrist take the ghosts down. Another puck sleeps over a seasonal dock that opens 4 times a year. It goes into a bag like the first. The scanner says yes where it should and no where it should not. They do not turn it into a parade. They write it on a sheet and move on. He takes a walk through his old hour in daylight with his hands behind his back. The bridge is just an aisle again with belts like neat coins and a cheek under a slow coin of light. The seam looks like any seam. The carpet looks like any carpet. The chalk he brushed earlier is a memory only if you knew to look for it. He does not miss it. He likes that rooms know how to be rooms again. The manager asks him for 1 page that tells the night in a voice anyone can hear. He keeps it short. 1 extra figure at the bridge, wrong stance. Coins and nylon and paper used as simple tells. Door counted twice, no picture. Header answered the scanner. Puck found, removed. Quiet now. Figure rolled to cage. Count and sheet agree. No people, no alarm. Calm from start to finish. He prints his name small at the bottom and hands the sheet back with a nod. He eats a late breakfast alone in the break room. Coffee tastes like a thing that has been waited on. Toast tastes like a fix for more than hunger. He does not tell anyone what the night felt like. He is not guarding a secret. He is letting the store keep its dignity. The difference matters. Afternoon walks past in orderly steps. The floor learns its daytime traffic again. A child laughs at a hat with eyes. A clerk refolds 3 sweaters with a speed that looks like care. Visual rebuilds a full table like a small city, lines and blocks and a tower of cups that look safe even when they are not. He goes home and sleeps the way you sleep after an hour that did not ask you to run. The next night arrives with the clean shape you wish every night would keep. He turns the key a little after 10 and the doors answer like friends. The store exhales, lights soften, the vents bring their low rain. He walks the floor with a pencil, not because he doubts the file, but because habit is how you honor a room that gave you an answer. Juniors holds 12. Menswear holds its line of suits and that camel coat that always looks like it has thoughts. Housewares holds 2 aprons tied firm. The windows show 4 faces to the street and the glass shows him his own outline for a moment and then forgets him. He likes that. He reaches the bridge and stands 2 steps back the way he always does. The cheek under the coin of light is just a cheek. The belt end cap is just a neat line of leather. The seam is just the place where steel meets nap. He slides a coin under the front edge of the plate for a test and lays a small paper triangle at the right corner because he likes to hear a building say nothing in a way you can point to. The coin is quiet. The paper lies flat. Good. He takes the freight corridor next. The little eye over the door is bored. His hand through the beam makes 1 jump and 1 return. and feels honest. The thread behind the beam rides straight between the posts. The chalk hair across the inner threshold is a single breath. The paper triangle at the jamb leans a polite degree and then decides to sit up straight because air is fickle and paper is light. He smiles and lets that be the loudest thing that happens here. He lifts the scanner and holds it under the clean lip. It says nothing at all, which is the perfect sentence for a door. He tilts the glass dustpan and takes one more periscope look because the trick is now a part of his hands. The spring, the shaft, the web, the bracket. No puck, no torn foam, only clean metal and dust that belongs to metal. He leaves the lip as he found it and puts the dustpan away with the quiet pride people feel when a trick belongs to the crew, not a person. He returns to the bridge and listens for the night's small habits. The escalator gives its inch and rests. A track head pops and does not ask for notice. China whispers in housewares and then keeps to itself. The coin is quiet. The paper is flat. The lash shadow lies the way light lies when it has time to think. He likes that a night can be true and empty at the same time. He calls the overnight office with nothing more than a courtesy. He says all is calm. No people. No alarm. Doors honest. Counts square. He says he will finish the loop and will call only if the room asks. A calm voice thanks him. He puts the phone back the way you put a glass down and keep a table from wobbling. He writes 3 small sentences on a card at the desk for the person who takes his place on a night he does not work. If your count and your sheet disagree, walk the floor twice. If a door counts without a picture, check under the lip with a mirror before you make a guess. Use coins, paper, thread, and chalk when your nerves want fireworks. Small tools make small truths. Small truths make good files. He does one more slow pass because he likes the way a store sounds when it knows everything is in its lane. Juniors is soft and neat. Menswear is calm and square. Housewares holds its moons and its bows. The windows lean on the city without asking for anything from it. The lint constellation he once used as a joke map is gone because someone wiped the pane with real attention. He misses it for half a second and then laughs at himself for that half second. He returns to the bridge and untucks the coin and the paper because you do not leave your tests lying around for someone else to trip on. The coin goes back into a little pillbox in the drawer with 3 others. The paper goes in the trash because paper is a tool, not a souvenir. He keeps nothing but the way the room feels when it agrees with him. He looks down the long run to the freight door and says thank you without making a sound. Not everyone would understand that. He does not need them to. He touches the desk bell and centers it by habit. He points the pen north because it looks like a promise that the next person will keep, even if they do not know they are keeping it. The hour near 3 comes and passes without a single odd thing. The printer does its step-by-step hum and lays down numbers the day will like. The escalator takes its inch on time and does not steal the strip of paper he did not tuck because he did not need to. The little eye at the door wakes and sleeps only when he asks it to. The bridge stays a bridge. He lets that be the victory. Not the puck in a bag, not the photo of the lip, not the chalk fan drawn and brushed away. The victory is that anyone could stand here tonight and see only a store doing its job. Near dawn, he writes a short note in the morning book in the same voice he used when the story was new. Doors quiet. Floor count and sheet agree. Bridge calm. No events. One line. No extra words. Day can read it in a breath and move on, which is what good notes should let a person do. He watches the lights learn the colour of morning for a moment and then goes to meet the first keys at the street. Metal greets metal. The sound is bright, not loud. He says good morning and means it. He hands over a desk that looks like someone respected time. He leaves the room as he found it, only cleaner. He steps into the alley with coffee that has not cooled yet and looks at brick that looks like brick under real sun. He thinks about how many nights are really only a list of small things done in the right order. He likes that answer. He keeps it. When a strange night becomes a simple rule, does it still hold when new hands try it? Today, they fold the story into a class anyone can pass. Morning keeps its quiet tone. The ladder is back in the cage. The puck sits in a clear bag on the manager's desk like a black button that forgot its coat. The extra figure rests on a Z-rack with a neat card on its wrist. He stands a step back and lets days shape the lesson. Nights earn answers. Days make those answers useful. Loss prevention gathers a small crowd by the freight corridor. 2 clerks, a new guard who still stands with his feet too close together, a stock lead with dust on one sleeve. The manager sets a folder on a cart. The room smells like lemon and coffee and cardboard. He likes that mix. It smells like work that knows its order. They begin with the door because doors tell the truth when rooms will not. Maintenance loosens the trim with calm hands and shows the small space above the lip. Spring, shaft, binder web, the bracket where dust would not live. He points to the clean crescent and the faint ring of torn foam and says, "This is what old glue looks like when it forgets when to let go." Loss prevention holds up the bag. The scanner answers from inside with a warm yes. Then quiet when it moves away from the metal. Cause, effect, simple as that. As he shows the dustpan trick to the group. Glass up, handle low. Tilt the slice of view under the lip. No prying, no force. Just eyes. The new guard tries it and smiles like a person who just learned a small magic that does not ask for applause. The stock lead nods and says he can teach his crew the same trick in the other building. The manager says good, then says gentler than that, and everyone laughs once and then settles. They step to the bridge next, because rooms also deserve a page in the book. He kneels without touching the ankle and points out the seam. The pale nylon crossbar that still lies in carpet like a fine hair. The faint chalk fan by the heel that they traced and then brushed for the carpet's sake. He retells the coin notes in one sentence. A bright front ring, a low rear hum, a tiny edge kiss. No drama, no chase. Just inches you could show a person and not feel foolish. Visual speaks to stance because form is their language. Hands in, one toe out, weight back. She sets the wrong hands to right and says, "This is how we leave it every time, even on bad days." The new guard watches the change and then admits he had never noticed how a hand angle tells the truth about a flaw. He will notice now. That is what classes are for. They make a rule in plain words that will still make sense to a person who is tired. If a door counts with no picture, look under the lip before you tell a story. Lift sticky things with patience. Bag what you find. Scan once. Wipe the lip dry. Take one picture before and one after. If your floor count and your sheet disagree, walk the floor twice. Coins, paper, thread, and chalk are allowed at night when your nerves want fireworks. Small tools make small truths. Small truths make clean files. The manager says that line twice so the group can hold it. Maintenance makes a second rule that lives with the first. Check every header once a month. If you find foam rings alone, lift them and log them. If you find a puck, bag it, scan it, and put the time on the bag. Do not force screws. Do not add paint to paint. The stock lead asks about seasonal docks. Maintenance says yes them too. Dust likes to hide lessons there. They build a practice right then because classes that touch hands stay. Loss prevention tapes 3 thin foam circles along a spare header board that lives in back for drills. He presses a small tag behind one of them. He asks for volunteers. The new guard works the mirror, finds the circles, and calls out positions the way a person calls the hour on a ship: left, center, right. The scanner answers at center. He eases the circle with a painter blade, and it comes free with a small sigh, a clean half ring left behind. He bags it. He smiles again. He will carry that smile to the next quiet night. They move to the sales floor for a second practice. He lays a coin at the front edge of a spare base on carpet. He places a nylon tie across the seam. He sets a tiny paper triangle under the lip. He asks the group what each tool says when a base moves a hair to the west. The clerk, who never speaks, says coin rings, tie snaps, paper tense, then settles. He says yes and means it. She will remember because she said it out loud. Afternoon keeps the lesson soft. Visual writes hand standard on a card and tapes it on the back room door where eyes go by habit. Hands in, one toe out, weight back. The words look like a kindness for the person who will be tired at 9:55. Maintenance writes header check on the big board in the shop where jobs queue in a calm list. Loss prevention adds a photo of the clean crescent to a small binder called Door, Things We Forget on Slow Months. He loves that title more than he says. He goes home and sleeps well for the first time in 2 nights. When he wakes, the hour has a straight back again. He turns the key a little after 10, and the doors answer like they always did. The building exhales, lights step down, vents hum low. He walks the floor because habit is a promise you make to a room, not to yourself. Juniors holds 12. Menswear holds its quiet line. Housewares holds its moons. The windows hold 4 faces to the street. The bridge is an aisle, nothing more, which is the best kind of aisle. He slides a coin under the front edge for a test that will be allowed to stay quiet. It stays quiet. He tucks it away again because clutter steals respect. He walks on. A week passes, then 2. The rules hold. The days feel ordinary and kind. On a Friday, a regional drops by late and changes a window for a morning photo. 5 forms stand in glass for an hour, and then 4 again at 10:40. He writes the moment down in 10 words and moves on because that is all it needs. Temporary ad for photos, reverted before close, no chase, calm holds. A new guard takes a Sunday and leaves him a note that is easy to like. Seasonal door beeped once at shoulder height. Foam ring found, no puck, lifted, wiped, quiet now. He smiles at the way the word now lands on that page. The trick belongs to more than one person. The room will not have to tell its story the hard way again. He teaches the class 2 more times to 2 small groups who prefer doing to hearing. One clerk finds a ring in an old soffit with the mirror and does not make a face when dust kisses her cheek. One stock hand learns how to lay a thread without leaving tape tabs where drafts can brag. The manager watches and says thank you without jokes. It feels like a floor that learned a new language and plans to speak it. On a quiet night, a month later, he chooses to test a strong claim and finds that it does not need to live in the file. He rolls a spare base onto the bridge and lays coins front and rear and at the right edge. He does not nudge. He waits 2 hours. Nothing sings. He nudges a 1/4 inch with 2 fingers, and they all speak in turn, like bells in a tower. He writes, forced in his private head, and wipes the marks. He is glad the store did not ask for that version of the story when it mattered. He keeps a single habit from the strange night that started this file. When the hour near 3 comes, he stands still for a minute and scans the 2 places at once, the bridge and the freight door. Not with fear, with respect. He looks for the calm answers that belong to both: white cheek in a coin of light, straight seam, quiet coins, a clean lip over the door, a bored little eye that counts only when asked, a thread that rides as a line, a chalk hair that keeps its edge. He lets that picture pay him back for waiting on it. He writes the line he likes at the end of his shift in the same small letters he used when the story was new. Doors quiet. Floor and sheet agree. Bridge calm. No events. He leaves space and a pen. The next person can add to it, or they can choose not to. The point is that they could do either without any need to make a show. He steps into the alley and likes how the brick looks when it does not have to act. He thinks about the way a store can be taught to tell the truth with small tools and patient eyes. He thinks about how some stories want a face and how the better ones do not. They want a file, they want a rule, they want the next person to breathe easy. Winter presses on rooms in quiet ways. When the load comes heavy and fast, does the rule still hold the shape of the night? The first cold week brings early dark and slow breath in the vents. Street doors sigh shut at 10. The store settles. Lights soften. Heat ticks in the ducts like a kind hand on a kettle. He likes winter nights. They move like careful ink across clean paper. He begins with the old promise. Walk the floor once for truth. Walk it again to see if truth repeats. Juniors holds 12. Menswear holds its quiet line. Housewares holds 2 aprons ready to teach. Windows hold 4 faces to the street. The bridge is an aisle again. The seam is just a seam. The cheek under a coin of light is only a clean cheek. It is good to say ordinary and mean it. Back room doors breathe different in winter. Boxes arrive like slow snow. Pallets wear wrap that crackles when you cut it. He watches day stack new stock near visual. Racks crowd together and then learn their lanes. He notes 1 spare base and 1 torso marked loan, visual signs both with a bold V. He likes that letter. It means someone owns the piece. He meets a new guard before close. She stands with steady feet and honest eyes. He gives her the short card he wrote in the fall. If a door counts with no picture, look under the lip. If a floor and a sheet disagree, walk twice. Use coins, paper, thread, and chalk. Small tools make small truths. She reads it once and smiles. She says she likes small words that do not hide. At 10:15 the floor is theirs. The building exhales. The vents hum low. He shows the new guard the 2 posts that matter. Here is the bridge. Here is the freight corridor. Here is how to stand so 1 slow turn shows both. She copies his posture without fuss. He feels the hour welcome her. They start with a winter check at the doors. The side hallway door learns a stiff hinge in cold. Maintenance has a note on it. The small eye above the lip counts when asked. It rests when left alone. He slides a mirror under the lip with the dustpan trick. Spring, shaft, binder web. Only dust where dust should be. The scanner holds its tongue. Good. They walk the main dock next because shipments are heavy this week. Thread between posts rides taut. Chalk hair across the inner threshold is 1 pale breath. The paper triangle at the right jam leans and then sits up. Air in winter is playful and then tired. The small eye reads honest. He lifts the scanner to shoulder height. 1 soft yes near the bracket. He tips the mirror. A thin foam ring lives at the far edge. No puck. Only the ghost of one. He files the ring for morning hands. The bridge is plain. Belts hang like quiet coins. The cheek under the coin of light does not invent a face. He lays a coin at the front edge of the plate for a simple test and tucks a small paper triangle at the right corner. He leaves both where they can be seen. He tells the new guard why. Tools in view keep a mind honest. Hiding tools breeds stories. Winter makes its own music. The escalator takes 1 inch and rests. Heat breathes through the vents and clicks once as metal learns warm. China in housewares whispers bowl to bowl. The windows fog a little at the corners and then clear. They stand and listen. The new guard says it sounds like a ship on a still night. He nods. That is the right picture. They take the long view from the desk. One slow turn shows both posts. To the right, the bridge. To the left, the freight door. He asks a quiet question. Do you feel any pull? She shakes her head. She says it feels even. He likes that answer. Even is a good map to start with. Midnight brings a truck without hurry. Day unloads and stacks. A stock lead signs 1 spare basin. Visual marks it V and wheels it to the cage. He watches the move, even though he trusts the crew. Trust and witness live well together. The base sits in back with a neat card. The door closes. The hour returns to slow. They walk a second pass because winter nights keep secrets in slow corners. Juniors holds 12. Menswear holds the camel coat that never hurries. Housewares holds its moons of light and its bows. Windows hold 4 faces without fog now. The bridge stays a bridge. The coin at the front edge stays quiet. The paper stays flat. He could end the night there and be right. He chooses to keep the promise and look once more at the door. The freight corridor wears a thin smell of cardboard and clean. The thread behind the beam rides strict. The chalk hair is whole. The little paper triangle rests like a folded thought. He slips a hand through the beam. 1 hop. 1 return, honest. He lifts the scanner, a mild yes near the lip. He uses the mirror. Foam ring still there, no puck, only the ring. He decides to leave it for day. Cold glue is stubborn, warm hands will make a neater job. He gives the new guard the simple drill at the spare header board in back. 3 foam circles taped for practice. 1 small tag hidden behind the center. She works the mirror. She calls left, then center, then right. She holds the scanner steady. It answers at center. She lifts the circle with a painter blade and leaves a clean half ring with no torn paint. She bags the circle. She writes the time on the bag. She wipes the board with a dry cloth. He says perfect. He means it. They return to the bridge for a practice with inches. He places a nylon tie across the seam. He explains what the snap should sound like. He lays a coin at the rear edge. He says, do not chase these sounds. Let the floor choose them. She nods and smiles. She says she likes jobs where the room gets to talk. Winter settles deeper. Heat holds steady. The escalator chooses a long carry once and swallows the receipt strip he tucked at the comb. He laughs quietly and lets the machine have that small drama. The bridge remains plain. The nylon tie across the seam is whole. The coins are quiet. The lash shadow keeps a thin line that points nowhere in particular. Even is still the right word. They take a short break at the desk. He pours tea from a thermos and shares the lid like a cup. He tells a winter story from years back about a window that would not stop fogging in a pattern that looked like a hand. It was a bad seal and a slow draft. He says this with no edge. He says it with warmth. She nods. She says every ghost begins as a draft until proven otherwise. He smiles. The line will serve her well. The last truck arrives near too. It brings end caps and boxes of small lights. Visual signs the manifest with a sleepy V that could be a leaf. Maintenance checks the side door once more. The scanner answers in a low, shy way near the lip. He tips the mirror and shows the thin ring. He leaves it for morning. He is content with that. Day owns gentle prying. The hour near 3 arrives without fuss. The printer hums. The vents breathe low. The escalator rests. The bridge coins are quiet. The seam tie is whole. The paper is flat. The freight door holds its count the way a scale holds 0. He feels a calm that does not need words. He stands beside the new guard and lets her read the room for herself. She names what she sees in short lines. Bridge is plain, door is honest, side door wants a ring removed, floor count and sheet agree. He says yes to each line. He tells her to write them in the morning book. When the light comes, she will do it clean. He can tell. They walk one last loop because winter nights give you time to do a thing twice. Juniors keeps 12. Menswear keeps its line. Housewares keeps its moons. The windows keep their 4. He feels grateful. Gratitude in work is a quiet weight that holds your shoulders right. He shows her how to set the hand standard on a form that leaned wrong near a table. Hands in. One toe out. Weight back. She copies the pose with the ease of a dancer. She fixes the form and steps back. The whole table looks better for 1 inch of change. She sees it. She will remember that view. They visit the freight corridor one more time in case the night wants one last word. The thread is strict. The chalk hair is whole. The triangle sits like a folded bird. The mirror shows ring and dust and no coin-shaped thing. The scanner is almost quiet. Almost is enough for night. Morning will make it quiet for good. Near dawn, Day arrives with coffee and calm faces. He gives the manager the winter line without drama. Side door has a foam ring. Dock is clean. Bridge is plain. Floor and sheet agree. No people, no alarm. He asks for a warm hand and a painter blade for the ring. The manager nods and writes the job on the board in a neat hand. Maintenance smiles and says he will do it before sun hits the alley. He steps back from the desk and watches the store pick up color. Light comes through glass like a patient idea. He feels the rule hold. Check under lips. Walk twice. Use small tools. Start with lines. He does not feel proud. He feels steady. Steady is a better jacket than pride in winter. He signs the book with a small line in the same voice he used in fall. Doors quiet. Side ring for Day. Bridge calm. No events. He leaves space for the new guard to add her view. She writes her 4 lines with neat letters and a hand that does not shake. It looks like a person who trusts the room now. He steps into the alley and breathes white for a second. Brick looks like brick. Steam leaves a drain and learns the air. He thinks about how winter loads rooms with weight that only shows in small ways. He thinks about how rules let that weight sit without bruising things. He thinks about how good it feels to hand a quiet place to morning. He walks home with his collar up and a steady pace. He keeps 1 sentence from the night and puts it in his pocket like a folded card. Even under winter load, the rule holds. Start with lines. End with calm. Good rules should travel. If you carry one to a new floor, will it keep its shape or bend to a new room's habits? A call comes from across town. A sister store needs a hand for 2 nights. New floor. New crew. Same kind of doors. He says yes, because a rule is worth more when it works in places that do not know your name. The building is shaped different. Windows are taller. The bridge sits closer to the front. The freight corridor turns once before the dock. The air smells like paint and lemon because someone loved a mop an hour ago. He likes the smell. It means the day wanted to be kind to the night. He meets their manager at closing. She has a folder and a direct way of standing that points to the work, not to herself. Their guard is new, but steady, feet set well, hands quiet. Maintenance is a one-man crew with the eyes of a person who fixes things before anyone asks. Visual is two people and a cart of pins. No one wants a speech. They want a plan. He gives them the small card he wrote in full. If a door counts with no picture, look under the lip. If a floor and a sheet disagree, walk twice. Use coins, paper, thread, and chalk. Small tools make small truths. He reads the words once and stops. The room nods. Good. They close the doors. Metal answers. Metal the way truth answers truth. Lights soften. Vents hum low. The new guard walks with him and learns the two posts that matter. Here is the bridge. Here is the freight corridor. Stand here, 2 steps back, so one slow turn shows both. She copies the stance without fuss. He feels the hour accept her. They begin with doors because doors tell the truth when rooms will not. At the side hallway door, the little eye counts when asked and rests when left alone. He slides a mirror under the lip with the dustpan trick. Spring, shaft, web, dust where dust should live. The scanner keeps its quiet. They move on. The main dock turns a corner and then opens like a small stage. He tapes a thread between posts behind the beam. He lays a chalk hair across the inner threshold. He leans a paper triangle at the right jam. He shows the new guard each one and says, "Air cannot do these things on its own." She smiles like she likes the idea of making a draft prove it is innocent. They check the bridge. It is wider than his floor at home. Belts hang like coins again, because belts are always coins at night. A cheek under a coin of light holds still. He sets one coin at the front edge of the base, not hidden, and tucks a small paper triangle near the right corner. They stand 2 steps back and let the room say nothing. Nothing is useful when it is honest. The store plays its opening night song. The escalator takes 1 slow inch and rests. A trackhead pops politely and then minds itself. China whispers bowl to bowl in housewares and then stops. The vents breathe a steady line. He likes how this room's music has the same notes in a different order. It tells him the rule will have a fair chance. Midway down the night, the dock counter blips. 1 hop. Their alley camera shows a cleaner pushing a cart past a far-loading door outside the building in his own world. The hop belongs to a moth inside the beam or to a curl of tape that shook loose somewhere no one loves. The thread between posts rides straight. The chalk hair stays whole. The paper triangle leans and then sits. The new guard breathes out. He lets her write the line in her head. Count with no cause is a story the door tells when it wants attention. He lifts the scanner under the lip. A soft yes answers at shoulder height. He turns toward the glass and it fades. He turns back and it returns. He tips the mirror. A faint foam ring sits at the bracket where dust refuses to stay. No puck, just the ghost of one. He says warm hands will do better at daylight. Maintenance nods. He is a person who likes patient verbs. They walk the bridge again. The coin at the front edge is quiet. The paper is flat. The cheek is only a cheek. He asks the new guard what she sees when she lets herself say only 1 sentence. She says the bridge is plain. He says, good. He wants her to feel what plain feels like so she can love it next week when a minute tries to sell her fireworks. A truck lands late. Pallets move. Visual rolls a spare base and a torso to the cage. She tags both with a bold letter and a time. He does not hover. He watches with soft eyes because trust and witness can share a room. The base goes on the rack. The cage door closes. The hour returns to quiet. They run a drill by the spare header board in back. He tapes 3 foam circles to the metal. He hides 1 small tag behind the center. The new guard works the mirror. She calls left, then center, then right. The scanner answers at center. She eases the circle with a painter blade and leaves a clean half ring. She bags it. She writes the time. She wipes the board. Her hands never hurry. He thinks she will teach this in 3 months without him. Back on the floor, they practice inches. He lays a nylon tie across the seam at a spare base. He sets front and rear coins. He tells the room to do nothing for 10 minutes. It obeys. Then he nudges a 1/4 inch with 2 fingers. Coin rings, coin hums. Tie gives up with a soft snap. The new guard smiles because the sounds are as small and clear as promises. He says, "Good. Now forget them unless the room chooses them." He returns to the dock because this store needs one more clean picture. The thread is a line. The chalk hair is a line. The triangle leans a polite degree. The scanner says yes, near the lip, and no, where it should. He decides to leave the ring for morning. Cold glue is stubborn. Day will make neat work of it. He writes the plan in his head the way you write down the steps for tea. Simple, gentle, no rush. Day arrives with sleeves rolled. The manager brings a folder and a quiet voice. Maintenance brings the ladder and the patience that goes with ladders. They open the lip with 2 screws and a breath. The ring lifts clean, no puck. Just the ghost of the habit that made last fall loud in another room. They bag the ring because small ghosts deserve a file. The scanner is quiet under the metal when the circle leaves. Everyone nods. It feels like a rule learning a new accent. They visit the bridge. Visual sets one form's hands to the standard. Hands in, 1 toe out, weight, back. She laughs once at a wrong elbow that no one saw at close. She fixes it in 5 seconds. The whole line looks better. The new guard says she will see elbows in her sleep now. He says that is the job. Notice, fix, leave the room kinder than you found it. They write the short class on a card for this crew. Check lips, walk twice, use small tools, set hands, tag loans. He keeps the verbs short. He keeps the steps few. Brains like 5 lines at dawn, not 20. The card goes on a corkboard next to a map and a lost glove. He likes how it looks there. It will be grabbed by a tired hand and put into a pocket that will do the work. He goes home to his store the next night. Spring is close enough to smell in the vents. The windows shine longer. The bridge wears a new sign with flowers that do not need water. The seam is just a seam. The cheek is just a cheek. He lays no coins. He slides no paper. He stands 2 steps back and watches the room be itself. It is good. He does one slow pass for the old promise. Juniors keeps 12. Menswear keeps its line. Housewares keeps 2 aprons and a tall stack of cups that look like a city. The windows keep 4 faces toward a street that wants to be warm again. He takes the freight corridor and lets the little eye count when asked. It does. It rests when left alone. The lip is clean and quiet. He thanks it in his head and moves on. He leaves a card at the desk for the next person, the easiest version yet. If you feel the room tug, stand still. Look at the bridge and the door. Ask for a plain sentence. If a door counts with no picture, look under the lip. If a count and a sheet disagree, walk twice. Coins, paper, thread, and chalk beat nerves. Start with lines, end with calm. He signs the card only with the store's name. The rule is the owner now. A week later, a note waits for him in the morning book from a guard he has not met. Side hallway door chirped, ring found, lifted, wiped, quiet, bridge calm, floor and sheet agree. The handwriting is neat, the line is short. He smiles without showing teeth. He feels the shape of the rule travelling without him. That is the best feeling a rule can give. On a Sunday, he teaches the class one more time to two hires who prefer doing to hearing. At the end, he asks one question he likes. What tool will you carry even if you never need it? One says mirror. One says thread. He says good. Then he says coin, because coin makes him slow down, and slow is how rooms tell the truth. He stands at the bridge one last minute before the week turns. The room is itself. The vents hum. The escalator rests. No coin rings. No tie snaps. The seam is silent and straight. He could call that nothing. He calls it the result of work done in order. He writes a line in the book that fits in one breath. Doors quiet. Bridge calm. No events. He leaves the pen for a new hand and walks to the alley light with a steady back. He breathes the air and thanks the brick for not pretending to be more. He keeps one sentence for nights that do not yet know him. Good rules travel when they are small enough to carry in your pocket. If you need one, take this. Start with lines. End with calm. If you had to keep only one tool in your pocket for a long night, which would you choose? Mirror, coin, thread, or chalk? That's it for tonight. Share your city, your time, and one detail. Calm stories return soon. Subscribe, tap the bell, and rest well.